I was pushing a wet mop down Bravo Wing when the general stopped like he'd seen a ghost. He didn't look at my face. He looked at the tiny piece of ink peeking over my collar where the elastic of a gray t-shirt had slipped, a butterfly, wings spread, body sure. His pupils tightened, then softened, recognition born from old dust and darker years. Petty officer. Monarch, he said, barely breathing the last word. Buckets squeaked. The corridor hummed. Somewhere a radio coughed out static in a baseball score. Around us, life kept doing what life does when it hasn't met death. I kept the mop moving because old habits guard the heart. "You've got the wrong cleaner, sir," I said, and heard the lie ring tinny in the hollow under my sternum. The butterfly meant something at one time to a handful of people who never talked. It meant a promise sewn into blood: move quiet, land light, find the wounded first, leave no breath behind. It meant I had crawled through places maps refused to show and hauled more than 100 men and women back from the claws. Myth gets bigger than the person who made it. That's how legends happen. But myths also get you killed, so 3 years ago I let mine die and let a simpler woman be born, the one with bleach hands and no questions. Monarch, he tried again, lower. Not a question. We lost contact with Archer team at 0300. 4 alive. 1 critical. Hostile Valley. We have no medic with your speed. And there's a voice on the last burst that said your name. I wrung the mop until the strings twisted like ligaments. Legends don't carry radios, I said. He stepped closer. The ribbons on his chest clicked softly. They called you the medic who cheated the Reaper. Saved 112. You know what that tattoo means. You know why we put butterflies on the backs of the ones who earned them. You know I would not come to a corridor with a mop unless there was no one else. There are traps that feel like prayers. This felt like both. Memory cracked like old ice, a truck bed, night rain, a man's breath turning into bubbles, my hand inside a chest finding a pulse hiding like a frightened bird. 112 isn't a number. It's a choir of eyes. I set the mop against the wall. Sir, the butterfly is retired. He nodded once. Then this is mercy, not duty. A kid you trained is out there. Call sign Rook. You taught him to count compressions when the hands shake. He said your name like he believed it could make air. Something in me stood up. In another life, I showed rookies how to tie a tourniquet with their eyes closed. I'd laughed when they cursed. I'd kept my voice calm when their gloves filled with someone else's heat. You'd better have a kit that isn't from a museum, I said. His jaw unclenched. We kept one for you. We had a feeling. Of course they did. You don't bury a butterfly without keeping a jar. I picked up the mop again because I needed one more second of the life that didn't request anything heroic. Where? I asked the floor. 2 hours out, he said. Black Ridge. Dry River. Bad actors who prefer their shadows busy. We insert in 30. I leaned the mop in the closet like a relic returning to its glass case, then tugged my shirt so the butterfly vanished beneath cotton. I'll need my cart, I said. He blinked. Your cart? The one with the bleach, I said. You'd be amazed how many lives we save with the things people walk by. The base swallowed us as we moved, doors opening, glances slipping off, the ordinary refusing to believe the extraordinary in broad daylight. In the small arms of a utility closet lay a med pack with my old name stitched on. Monarch. The bag remembered the shape of my shoulders. My fingers found their old ritual: count the vents, taste the air, leave room for luck. General, I said as we reached the flight line, rotors thumping like a second heart. If I do this, I go back to being a rumor. He looked at the helicopter, then back at me. Rumors keep people alive longer than medals do. I touched the butterfly through fabric. Paper wings. Iron vows. Fine, I said. Let's go find a kid who believes in ghosts. The bird lifted. The base became a chalk mark. The ridge ahead was a black tooth chewing the horizon. And somewhere under that tooth, for heartbeats were waiting for a cleaner with a mop and an old name. We flew into weather that had no patience for men with medals. The valley rose like a fist, and the pilot tucked us into its knuckles. We went low, because low is where the living hide. The general strapped in across from me, suddenly smaller without his office around him. Beside me, a younger lieutenant, sharp jaw, fresh boots, strange eyes, kept looking at my collar like the butterfly might answer questions he was too proud to ask. "Lieutenant," I said, "you ever run a decompression with a pen?" He blinked. "A pen?" "In a pinch," I said. "Bic writes differently when it's writing for a long." He didn't smile. "I read your file." "My file drowned," I said. "Along with everything that made that life possible." He shifted. "Why disappear?" "You saved more people than the story says," I finished. "Stories aren't tally sheets." I left because a mission got bigger than permission. Because civilians don't bleed any slower when the comms say wait. He studied me. "Saltwater glass," he said carefully. So someone had whispered. "You disobeyed a stand-down to extract noncombatants." Then the roof caved in on the politics and Monarch died. I let the rotors talk for me a moment. Saltwater glass was a mirror I still couldn't look in. An apartment building near the coast, a sniper nest, a child with a red shoe, my teen pinned. I broke rules to widen the definition of who counts. We left with lives that didn't belong to our ledger, and in return I had to give them mine. Headlines love heroes when heroes are tidy. I am not tidy. The uniform likes tidy. I disappeared, I said, because it was the only way to keep breathing without hating the air. The lieutenant nodded like he understood, and maybe he did, because kids who read files sometimes also read truth under the black ink. He glanced at the general. "Sir, why me on this?" "Because you don't drink your own mythology," the general said. "And because her kit will make more sense if someone keeps a mirror on it." "Mirror?" "To show the face you make when you cut," I said. "So the patient knows you're afraid too." His throat moved. "Yes, ma'am." I smiled with only half my mouth. "Don't call me ma'am. Monarch, if you must. Or cleaner. Either way, hold pressure when I ask and don't try to be a poet with a tourniquet. Tight is better than pretty." He swallowed. "Yes. Monarch." The pilot's voice crawled along the headsets, 30 seconds. I closed my eyes. Counted to 8. Old superstition. That was how long a mind could panic before choice carved it into action. I used to teach that in a classroom with no windows. You panic for 8, I told rookies, and then you do the next true thing. We hit dirt and moved like we didn't want the earth to know our names. Dry riverbed, scrapes of bush, rock that remembered being ocean. Far valley. Farther morals. The general took rear. Lieutenant watched left. I watched the ground, the sky, the silence between. The first sign was a smear of blood the color of rust. A man had crawled here. The way the sand shifted around the smear told me he was conscious when he did. Rook. He used to drag his right foot a hair when overburdened. The groove said right foot heavy, left knee shy. He was alive when he left the stain. The desert remembers. We found them backed into a pocket of shale that looked like a throat, with teeth of stone above. 3 upright, 1 down. Rook wasn't the one on the ground. That honor went to a corporal whose face had turned the gray of liens and secrets. GSW, lower left abdomen, exit wound ragged, bleeding slow like a tired river. Rook's eyes went wide when he saw me. "Mon," he began, and I cut him off with a finger. "Save your air for holding still," I said, dropping to my knees. "You do that, I'll write your story without too many adjectives." He barked a laugh that hurt him. "Good. Laughter is a sign you still own your life." Rounds snapped overhead and threw dust into our teeth. Someone didn't want this little resurrection to happen tidy. The lieutenant put 2 controlled answers into a crack and brought the argument down to a mutter. "Lieutenant," I said, handing him gauze that looked like it had crawled out of a science fiction prop room. Push here and do not stop pushing until I tell you. If your hands go numb, that's good. Means you're starting to pay. He leaned and pressed. The corporal groaned. You okay? The lieutenant asked. He's not, I said. But he will be if our ballet is convincing. Rook hovered. I said your name, he confessed, shame and hope braided in his voice. I didn't know where you were. I just said it. That's how prayers work, I said, and sliced fabric, and counted breath, and let the world narrow to a field kit and a body and the math of not letting the dark win. Some people pray with words. Medics pray with pressure and seconds. We got the bleeding quiet. We got a breath that wasn't just noise. We got the corporal into a position that didn't insult his arteries. And then the valley decided to get louder again, because valleys never sign the Geneva Conventions. Move, I said. We walk the river. We stay in the memory of water. We started. The general took the corporal's far shoulder. Rook took near. The lieutenant watched the spaces between rocks like they were punctuation marks that could kill us. And I walked backward, because sometimes the person who keeps others alive has to be the one to watch the past try to bite. Monarch, the general said as we hit the riverbed and boots sank half an inch. You said you'd be a rumor after this. I didn't say whose rumor, I answered. A crack, close. The lieutenant yelped and dropped, then rolled to cover like he remembered being taught by someone who didn't believe in half lessons. He was breathing. Good. The bullet kissed air and kept going. But the echo was wrong. It came from too many places. Contact left and right, Rook hissed, but even as he said it, I realized left and right were polite lies. The valley wasn't trying to ambush us. It was trying to hurt us. Down, I said, and pulled the corporal into a divot shaped like a question mark. They're pushing us to the siphon. The lieutenant met my eyes. Siphon? A place where the river used to drop and take everything with it, I said. Where you send things you don't want to see again. He swallowed. The general's mouth thinned. You think they know who you are? I think someone wants to find out whether butterflies can fly with wet wings, I said. So we don't go where they want. We go where water remembers it once ran uphill. Water doesn't, the lieutenant began. It does, I said, when the wind is wrong and the rock is mean. Trust me. We crawled not toward the siphon's black throat but toward a seam of rock that looked boring. Boring is where survival hides. Bullets searched for our names. We gave them fake ones. And as we moved, a whisper chased my neck, something thinner than wind, older than orders. The whisper sounded like the click a camera makes when it captures you without consent. We found cover in a cleft that had enough shade to pretend to be mercy. I had the corporal pressed against a pack in a frequency in my teeth when the click happened again, steady, polite, a metronome in a place that hated music. Lieutenant, I said without moving my eyes, on 3, look up 2 inches left. 1, 2, 3. He raised his gaze and caught it, a small bulb the color of sand, a lens winking behind a cobweb of grit, nested in the stone like a spider that had hired an engineer. Not a simple scout. A recorder. A feeder. Someone was watching the rescue like it was a show they'd paid for. Who, he whispered. Who asks questions when answers are bleeding, I said. Cut it. He slid a blade and the lens died with one last petulant blink. Rook shifted. The corporal's breath shivered but stayed. Monarch, the general said softly. We were sent in blind, but someone out here isn't blind at all. Someone's hunting a rumor, I said, and let the old anger open its eyelids. And they baited the hook with kids I trained. Silence from the radio. The sky held its breath. We moved again, not because it was safe but because staying would be a more obedient way to die. I kept the corporal's pulse under my thumb. The world's pulse under the other. We reached the shelf where the valley tried to turn into a staircase. The wind turned hot and mean. Another shot barked. The lieutenant grunted, then showed me the graze along his tricep. I'm fine, he said, which is the favorite lie of the young. I wrapped it and didn't argue. Argument is for rooms with chairs. Monarch, Rook said as we hugged a slab of basalt, I still do the drill you taught. 8 seconds. Then the next true thing. You remember the important parts, I said. I also remember you said the butterfly wasn't about being soft, he said. It was about landing where the blood is and not crushing the flower. I blinked. The kid had listened when I wasn't watching. That's how teaching works when it works at all. We cut across the shelf and slid into a fold that hit us from 2 sides. The riverbed bent ahead, and along that bend, where shadow pooled, I saw it, a narrow ribbon of dust rising and falling in a rhythm that wasn't wind. A drone, small, hungry, interested. The kind that doesn't kill by itself, but helps someone else aim. Down, I breathed. We hugged the ground like it's a friend we owe money. The drone drifted, curious. Its lens grazed our position, paused, then continued. Someone had a screen somewhere, a coffee, a voice on a phone saying, almost. We waited until the sky forgot us. Then we sprinted. The corporal whimpered. I whispered stupid things to him, small lies meant to be true later, pancakes, blue porch light, the smell of laundry when someone you love folds it for you. Sometimes you keep people alive by dragging tomorrow forward and setting it on their chest. We made the next fold. The drone returned. We moved again. Dance with a bored god. The shot that hit the general was quiet and almost polite. He staggered, made a sound like a door catching on a rug, and dropped to one knee. The round had kissed his flank and decided to keep a souvenir. He pressed a palm and nodded as if surprised to find blood was still red. Sir, the lieutenant said, already tearing a pack, but I was there first, palm over palm, pressure measured. I've had worse, the general lied. You've had different, I said. Different isn't worse. It's just new. He breathed around a smile. You're still impolite in the right ways. Stay curious, not heroic, I said. We need your voice on the bird. He frowned. We can't call the bird until. We can, I said, and looked at the lieutenant. You have smoke? He nodded, surprised. Green. Green wise, I said. Everyone loves green. We'll use blue. Blue? Bleach, I said, and pulled the small bottle from my cart's side pouch, the one the armorer laughed at when he saw me pack it. You said you read my file. Did it say anything about making helicopters out of housekeeping? We made a smoke the drone didn't expect, a cloud of chalk and simple chemistry that bloomed stupid and beautiful and confused every camera lens for 60 seconds. Sometimes the best tech is the thing your grandmother used. The pilot's voice crackled. We see, blue? Is that you? It's clean, I said. Come to the clean. We moved. The corporal floated between us like a stubborn angel. The general kept his feet in his sarcasm, which meant he wasn't dying yet. Rook watched the corners. The lieutenant watched the sky. I watched the rhythm of the shots, the spacing, the patience. The pattern wasn't militia mess. It was a hunter's boredom. We were 50 yards from the exfil point when the radio coughed a new voice, crisp and amused. Butterfly, it said, a word turned into a knife. I wondered if rumor would sprout legs. Rook's eyes went flat. The general's mouth hardened. The lieutenant looked at me, waiting to be told how afraid to be. Broker, I said, because some names never deserved rank. Still playing sommelier with other people's disasters? A chuckle across air. I curate, he said. And I've been curating you. The myth. The count. 112. That's art. I want to see if art bleeds in person. Not today, I said. Today exactly, he answered. If you run, I pull the siphon. If you stop, I get my exhibit. If you bargain, I take 2 of yours and leave you your rumor. Choose. I looked at the general. He shook his head once, small. No deals. I looked at Rook. His jaw had that new stainless steel set men get when they decide their fear can sit in the back seat. The lieutenant held the corporal and a prayer both. 8 seconds, I said to all of them. Panic now. We did. The world widened, then narrowed again, and inside that narrowness a truth walked in and sat down. We couldn't outrun a man who designed rooms to kill you with their shape. So we changed the room. Rook, I said, you remember the demo with the saline and the battery? He blinked. The fake heart? The other one, I said. The one that makes drones forget what weight looks like. His eyes lit. The pocket EMP? Don't call it that out loud, I said. People get twitchy. But yes. The lieutenant's grin was a fast flicker. The general looked at the sky like it might apologize. We dropped the pack with the trick inside, set our friends in shadow, and let the swarm drift nearer, curious. Broker's camera hungers leaned. We clicked the thing you aren't supposed to click without permission from people who haven't bled. The sky hiccuped. The drones stuttered like men misstepping at a funeral. For 5 slow counts, eyes went blind. We ran not toward the bird, but into the scene the drones had been hiding, the boring crease, the place where a human with arrogance would not bother to look. Bullets came late and angry. The broker laughed once, short, the sound of a collector dropping a vase and being briefly honest. Then the radio went white with fury. We slid into a culvert that smelled like old storms. We dragged life with us. The helicopter roared overhead, confused by the blue cloud and the sudden muffle. We were not going to make the bird. Not this pass. Maybe not the next. But we were going to make a different kind of choice. New plan, I said. We become cleaning fluid. The lieutenant blinked. Meaning? We take the stain out of the place that wants it, I said. We move through pipes the architect forgot he built. Rook grinned, feral. The general grimaced and nodded. The corporal breathed like a man learning to sing again. Behind us, the broker's voice came back, not amused anymore. Run, butterfly, he said, and watch the net tighten. I touched the butterfly under my shirt, felt the ink warm with my heat. You first, I whispered, and we went into the dark throat where water used to dream. The culvert was a ribcage you could crawl through only if you promised to breathe shallow. Stone sweated a mineral cold, every scrape echoing too far. The corporal's thin breath tapped out time, Rook cradled his shoulders, while the general and the lieutenant hauled the legs in grim silence. I led, because that's what you do when tunnels might turn into wounds. Every 40 feet the valley asked us to quit, rusted grates, clogged channels, wire snarls. My kit was still half janitor's cart, half field hospital, bolt cutter short as a prayer, bleach that softened rust, sheeting that could become stretcher or sail. Housekeeping and survival have always been cousins. 8 seconds, I whispered whenever panic clawed up. Spend them now. We did 1, 2, 3, and then moved again. Rook remembered the old drill, airway, bleeding, circulation, decision. He had grown since the windowless classrooms, but he still looked for my nod before each choice. Above, drones buzzed like hungry mosquitoes. They weren't killing us directly, they were pointing us out. Twice I heard the faint electronic cough of signals being relayed. We couldn't outrun interest, only bore it, so we hugged the culvert, let ourselves blur into background. At one grate the bolts refused to give. Rust mocked us. The pilot's check-in over comms was a countdown we couldn't meet. I levered with my whole frame, the general bracing without a word, until the grate sighed and lifted like a stubborn old man giving in. We crawled through, then surfaced into a stone pocket, close now to the service road where the helicopter could pretend to be a truck. I raised my hand, wait. Silence is an anesthetic. Then, as we shifted forward, the lieutenant vanished to the waist with a grunt. The trap's jaws had closed on his thigh, old steel, spring-loaded teeth. It wasn't the femoral, or he'd already be smoke, but it had bitten deep. Don't move, I ordered. His eyes were wide, begging permission to hate himself. Look at me. Talk. What's the first smell when it rains back home? He blinked. Laundry. My mother never used a dryer. Said machines made clothes forget who they are. Good. I slid a flat of steel between tooth and bone while he spoke. What about the porch light? Blue. For my brother when he shipped out. It's still blue. Perfect. Rook braced the joint above. The general pressed the springs with his weight. I levered. The jaws opened, just enough. We freed him and wrapped the leg, tourniquet snug. Bruises would blossom like night sky, but it was still a leg. We moved fast toward the road. The bird was inbound. That's when he appeared, broker, stepping from the shadows like a collector in a gallery. Too elegant, too calm. Butterfly, he said, tasting it. I've curated you for years. You don't kill, you save. That's why you belong to me. I raised my pistol. The safety clicked uselessly. His smile showed top teeth only. I belong to floors and lungs and stubborn hearts, I told him. Then I flicked the cap from my bleach bottle and threw. It struck his face and just as hissed. He screamed, blind and furious. I didn't shoot him, I put a round in the dirt at his feet. Mercy is a choice, and I wanted him to know it. Go! I shouted. The general, bleeding but steady, didn't argue. Rook and the lieutenant hauled the corporal with strength that came from decision, not muscle. We ran bent and ugly toward the bird as its rotors lashed grit into our teeth. Bullets reached for our names and missed. The ramp yawned open. The corporal went first, then the general, then the limping lieutenant. Rook tried to wait, but I shoved him on. I followed last, turning once to see the broker on his knees, choking on bleach and humiliation. The drones wobbled like drunk fireflies, robbed of their purpose. The door slammed shut. The world shrank to metal, noise, and breath. My hands shook so hard water slopped from the bottle Rook pressed into them. The corporal's chest rose steady. The lieutenant, pale but alive, grinned through pain. The general sat against the bulkhead, hand clamped to his wound, eyes fixed not on my face but on the butterfly hidden under cotton. How many now? Rook whispered. 113, I answered. It wasn't triumph, just a receipt. Your name still means hope, he said softly. The general's mouth tightened. Medals don't keep people breathing, he said. Sometimes rumors do. I leaned back, the butterfly tattoo burning warm between shoulder blades. Through the window the valley shrank, the collector becoming just another shadow. Somewhere below, he learned that some things refused to be hung in his gallery. When the bird touched down, the others filed out, corporal on stretcher, lieutenant hobbling, Rook steady beside him. The general lingered a moment, like a man about to argue me back into medals. I'll be in the corridor, I told him. He nodded. He understood. There's a mop waiting in a closet the color of patience. I set my palm to the handle, wood warm from ordinary hands. Floors need cleaning, and rumors need defending the quiet way, by showing up where blood and dust insist they own the place. I have saved 113. That is a number and a choir. The butterfly stays hidden, but alive. And I choose, once again, to be a rumor.